If you are easily offended, please leave and don't come back. The views, opinions, and statements from this podcast are by no one. I repeat, by no one. They are not real, and everything is completely made up. This is for entertainment purposes only. The people in this podcast are not doctors, lawyers, or health professionals. They barely graduated high school. It's not that serious. Enjoy the show and have a nice day. What do you mean? It's recording now, by the way.
Yeah, no worries. Well, like when I was kind of navigating my identity as a two-spirit, non-binary person, and especially being Cree and, you know, just all of the things that were kind of coming into play. And during that time, I was also a really big drug addict during that time. And I was just really not in a good space, and I didn't know what I wanted for my life. And I knew that when I wanted to... I just knew I love meeting new people. I love talking to people. I love having conversations, but I also love music. And music, wherever I am, music is always playing no matter what. I'm always listening to music. And I come from a family of musicians, and I just thought building that bridge between me getting to know people and loving to connect with people and music, radio was perfect for that, you know, radio, podcasts, and wanted to bring more youth radio, because the radios that we hear on the res now, it's all playing like George Jones and Ernest Moniaz and all that stuff, which no hate to them, I love them, but I wanted to hear some, you know, Shakira, Rihanna, Beyonce, you know, and jam out to that. So yeah, just really wanted to, everything was always for the youth for me since ever, everything. I always wanted to do work for the youth. So
that sounds great. So you have it's what it sounds like to me is that you're like a really creative person, obviously, because you have your own clothing brand. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So I've been really such a creative person for a very long time. You know, I was introduced to powwow and ceremony since I was 3 years old. And through there was when I started basically designing my own stuff. You know, I was designing my own regalias and really seeing my family sew and helping them sew my stuff, and really was really introduced to design and artwork and indigenous fashion through that. And then my grandparents as well, you know, during the Hudson's Bay Trading Post days, you know, they were alive during that, and during the first trading post in Moose Factory and Waskagnish within the James Bay region. And that was their whole career, was, you know, trapping. My grandpa would trap and provide all the food and everything, and my grandma would use all of the animals. So the beavers we trap, she'd tan the hide, she used the fur, you know, the moose hide, she'd tan the moose hide, make sure that, you know, my aunts and uncles, my parents had, you know, clothes for the bush, for the land, had moccasins, and it's just always been in my family, you know. And I think from a very young age, just really came out through that, and I never really understood at the time where that came from. And then now that I got older, I realized like it's been in my family since generations now, like a lot of indigenous folk.
So when did you start up the brand?
Yeah, so I went to school for fashion arts and business in Toronto. My beginning year was 2017. I left the reserve, went there for a bit, and I actually didn't last long. I think I only lasted a semester, and then I kind of got homesick, like a lot of people do when they leave the communities. Missed my family, missed the lands, missed everything that I kind of knew. So I went back to the community, and realized that I wasn't ready yet. You know, I started working over there, and then I realized that, you know, you're never going to be ready for a lot of things in your life. Sometimes you just got to take that jump and just, you know, take that leap of faith, and it's either going to work out or either it's not. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for me the first time. I launched my brand back in December 2017. And what's something people don't ever tell people is launching a brand or new products during holiday season, big no-no. Big no-no, because you're not really going to get much sales from that, because people are holiday shopping or Christmas shopping. So they're going to be Christmas shopping for things that they know their family wants, you know,
that
or
makes sense,
know that what works or knows which is good. You know, they're not going to really take the gamble on new products during that time. And, you know, youth already have a Christmas list that they've all been working on. So that's obviously going to pick the top priority. I didn't know that at the time. You know, I just seen Shopify. I thought I would open up a store, opened up an account with Applique, which is this US based t-shirt printing company. And I started from there, you know, and I think I only got like 5 sales my first launch, you know, and I thought I was a big failure. And I was like, oh, maybe this isn't my career. You know, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But then I realized, I was like, bitch, you just went to school for like half a semester. You know, you didn't get to learn all of that knowledge and all of that experience that you would have got in school. So maybe just hold off on it a little bit, go to school, finish school, and when you're done that, you'll know what to do. So that's what I did. I just started to go. I stayed in the res for a bit, moved back to Toronto back in 2019. Went back to school for fashion arts and business and just dedicated my time to learning, you know, immersing myself within the fashion industry there. And May 2021, during the pandemic, when I ended up dropping out of fashion school, you know, because in fashion, everything is so hands-on, you know, and sewing and practical, like you're using your hands a lot. And you couldn't do that during the pandemic when everything was shut down. So it was either I drop out of school and move back to the res, or I drop out of school and just grind and hustle, you know. And I couldn't really go back to anything, you know, like my mom only has like a 2-bedroom house and there's already like 5 people living there. You know, my dad only has like a 4-bedroom house and there's already like 7, 8 people living there, you know. So like moving back home wasn't really an option for me. So I was like, I have to stick it out. You know, I have to stay here and just grind. So that's what I did. I reached out to so many different designers. I just found so many different events in Toronto and just forced myself into these spaces. You know, even if I wasn't invited, I would just go and just stand out there and just find a way to sneak in. You know, I was just so hungry to learn knowledge and just to meet people and just to establish a career for myself. So I did. That's what I did. I reached out to indigenous designers in Toronto, worked under them as a mentee. And then when I was ready, that's when I was like, you know what, I'm going to start my own brand. So in May 2019 is when I launched my first collection. And I didn't know how it was going to go. I was kind of scared on how it was going to go. Was kind of predicting the worst, but that's basically when my life changed. I sold out of my collection in 2 days.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of unheard of with a lot of, you know, newly designers. And that's when I was like, damn, maybe I do have something good here. You know, maybe I should harness this craft and work on it a little bit more. So May 2019 actually was my first official launch.
So I guess it's a good thing that didn't work out the first time.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's what I really am very adamant on. You know, you have to go through mistakes in order to learn in life, you know, and you're always going to, and we're going to be going through mistakes no matter what. And it's just the matter on how you grow from that. You know, don't let it affect you. Don't let it make you insecure. Instead, let that make you stronger. You know, let that give you that experience and that knowledge on what to do going forward. And yeah, some people are afraid of failure, but you can't be afraid of failure in anything, any industry, really. You just need to go for it and remember your goal, remember your dream, and remember what you want to do.
Like, is it like when you come up with your designs and stuff? What's that even like process like?
Well, actually, before I started designing, a lot of my designs came to me in dreams, like a lot of people. Yeah, which is kind of crazy, which is real sacred. You know? Like
a lot of creative people say that.
Exactly.
Like even like songwriters and stuff. I watch a lot of interviews and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's true. And especially as being indigenous people, you know, a lot of the messages and a lot of the things that we get is through dreams, you know, and that's something that I was taught growing up a lot is pay attention to your dreams, because that's the way that your ancestors or your spirit guides talk to you and connect to you and trying to send you messages. And I remember always getting messages for this one design, which ended up becoming the Hampton x Wabano jacket. And that was the one design that kind of really, I guess, accelerated my career to what it is today and kind of put me on the map as an indigenous designer, you know. And but I always think back on those dreams, and I always remember that, dreams are messages from the other side. And it's really important to remember them and trying to get your messages from that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to ask you which specific work of yours kind of took you to the next level. Mm-hmm.
It was definitely the Hampton X Wabano jacket.
Yeah, I think this one might be mine.
Yeah.
And so I remember so you mentioned before when we talked off camera about New York Fashion Week. We talked about it very quickly. Do you want to what was that like?
That was, am I allowed to swear on here?
You just say do whatever you want.
It was fucking crazy. This was back in, what year are we? We're in 2024. So I did my show 2023, 2022 during Christmas holidays, or November 2022. I got an email, or not even November. I think it must have been October. I don't remember the exact date, but I got an email in the fall. And I thought it was an invite to a New York Fashion Week show, and thought they were just inviting me. I was like, oh my God, this is actually pretty cool, me being invited. And then I actually read the email and I was like, oh no, they want me to showcase at New York Fashion Week. I was like, damn. I was like, oh my God. I was scared shitless, I didn't think I was in this position where I could showcase at New York Fashion Week. I was just starting out. I didn't even have my first runway show yet, So I didn't really know what kind of went into that. But at the same time, I was also thinking okay, but how fucking iconic would it be to have your first runway show at New York Fashion Week? Yeah. And then, the opportunity was there. And I truly believe that creator wouldn't put you in rooms that you weren't meant to be in. And he wouldn't give you opportunities that you weren't meant to have. So after conversating with Runway 7, who was my New York Fashion Week organizers, and really developing that relationship, because I'm an indigenous designer first, and my community comes first with everything that I do. And when they were reaching out about New York Fashion Week, they really wanted me to oh, do you know any celebrities or influencers you could invite to front row and all this stuff? And I'm like, okay, girl, if you're going to be working with indigenous folk, you got to remember that we don't have all that in our communities. We have elders, we have chiefs, we have so many older people that we look up to and hold to a high regard, So that's what I said. I said, I want my front row of my New York Fashion Week show filled with chiefs, filled with elders, filled with community members, and that is what I told them. And they were really respectful over that. They invited all of these different chiefs. I had the chief of Mushkegowuk be invited, my home territory, the chief of Eowisti, the grand chief of Eowisti also walked in my New York Fashion Week show. I had aunties and uncles and just cousins throughout the whole crowd. It was just really good energy. And that's something I always say, that New York Fashion Week show wasn't for me. It was for community, and it was to showcase mainstream industry on how powerful our communities are when we come together, and the power of collaboration and the power of just being indigenous.
About mainstream industry. I kind of just kind of look around on social media and stuff, and I remember seeing there was, I can't remember their name, but then it was an indigenous fashion designer too as well. I don't really want to say names, but I don't really, whatever. Anyway, they collaborated with one of the luxury brands.
Gucci. Just the recent one with Gucci and Joe Big Mountain.
Yeah, I say, yeah. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, no disrespect to anybody. And so, and I looked at the comments and stuff, and then people were they were upset, and they were saying that these big luxury brands are using indigenous designers for profit. What's your thoughts on that?
I truly believe in authentic collaborationship, and for the longest time, the mainstream fashion industry has had a long history of appropriating our culture. For the longest time, we've seen it. We've seen headdresses on runway. We've seen headdresses at Coachella, and just them trying to glamorize indigenous culture. And I truly believe when there's collaborations like this happening in the mainstream fashion industry, it really opens the door for other indigenous creatives to kind of enter in these spaces, but also allows these big brands to be educated, on how to better work and better support our communities. Like I said, for the longest time, they've just been tokenizing and culturally appropriating a lot of our designs, but now we are seeing where they're actually respecting our art form. They're bringing us into these big studios like Gucci, you know, and giving us these big positions on lead design, and, you know, giving us an entire team to kind of ensure that our work is being authentic and being supportive, and also being showcased on a respectful level, you know. And I think that really brings in a lot of potential for respectful collaborations for the future, you know.
So then you're happy that they are like shining light on indigenous designers rather than just stealing it like they used to?
Yes, no, I'm all here for these collaborations, you know. I want to see more of them, and these are authentic collaborations, you know. They're highlighting indigenous folk. You know, this dress was designed for Lily Gladstone, the first Native American to be nominated for an Oscar. You know, that's major. And obviously, and if you see Lily's career and all of her red carpet looks, she's always supported indigenous fashion and always built those two bridges together on incorporating indigenous fashion and luxury fashion, and really ensuring that these luxury fashion houses are respecting, you know, our artwork and seeing it as the same level as luxury as their products. And I truly believe that indigenous beadwork, all of our products should be held higher than these luxury brands, you know, because we have been the first leaders in luxury fashion since ever. You know, everything that we make in our culture, it's all luxury fashion. It's all sustainable fashion. It's all slow fashion. It's all meaningful. Everything is done with intent, you know, and I think that's something that we could really help teach these high fashion brands and high fashion houses, you know, how to design with intent and design with love and design with community and Mother Nature in mind.
So you said, I heard you said slow fashion. What's I heard of fast fashion. What is slow fashion?
Yeah, so fast fashion is basically what you see now. So everything that's in H&M or everything that's in all of these department stores.
You wash it like 3 times and it's like destroyed.
Yeah, you wash it like 3 times. You know, they come with every new collections like once a week, you know, and then when these products don't sell, they're automatically given to a landfill, you know, and these clothes don't break down.
So slow fashion is probably the opposite of that.
Slow fashion is the opposite of that. Okay. Yeah. So slow fashion is supporting local, supporting indigenous designers, you know, made to order, things that are actually, you know, made in-house, you know, and not made by a big supplier like overseas, you know. People don't really understand that, and people don't realize that fast fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world underneath oil, you know. And as people, no matter what industry you come from, no matter what background you're from, everybody is a part of the fashion industry. Because what's the first thought you think of when you wake up is, what am I going to wear today?
Yeah.
Everybody thinks that. Doesn't matter where you are or what place you work in. Everybody's a part of that. And I don't think people realize that they are, you know, and whether you're a consumer or not, you know, you have an impact that you do with your clothes. And if you're supporting fast fashion and you're indigenous, and you know these fast fashion brands are known for contributing to top pollutants in the world, and knowing that these products are not safe for the environment, all the dyes, you know, when you're washing your clothes, this is going into our water filtration system, you know, like we're not conscious of that enough. And we can't blame everybody, you know. It's not something that we're taught in school. It's not something we're taught by society, unfortunately. But I think it's really important that we are more mindful on where we consume our fashion, where we purchase as well.
Yeah. You said that a lot of people don't know that they are actually like involved with fashion too as well. And I remember with Devil Wears Prada. Remember when Andy was like the stuff?
Yeah.
And then
that's my favorite scene.
Yeah. And then Miranda goes and reminds her that even if she doesn't care about what she's wearing, that whatever she picked out to wear that day was a lumpy blue sweater. She was just like, it got chosen by people in that room, specifically for her. Even if you don't care, like, people chose that, and they knew that you don't care about the way you look, so that's what that is, or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I loved A Devil's Wear Prada. Like that movie has been pivotal into my life. And that scene alone is really just iconic, you know, and really just goes to show, you know, that whether or not you're in the high top Vogue place or just shopping in a department store, you know, there's always an impact there. And there's always an intention behind those designs.
So one of your designs, I think the one that pops out the most to me is the teepee. Yeah.
That's my my logo is a teepee. I created that because, well, like I mentioned, you know, I had to leave home, like a lot of Indigenous youth within communities. You know, whenever they were trying to pursue a post-secondary education or just pursue a better life for themselves. You know, eventually that often means that we have to leave home most of the time. You know, it's not often safe for a lot of 2S LGBTQ people there, like myself, and that's one of the reasons why I had to leave too. And I just wanted to pursue a career in fashion too. But I also, when we leave our communities, you know, I feel like youth, sometimes we feel so far disconnected, you know, we feel like we're not close to it. That's how I felt, you know, until I realized and was speaking to elders, remembering, who reminded me that no matter how far you go or what path you walk and how far away you go from your community, you're always going to carry that piece of home within you. And when I think of home, I think of a teepee, because everything we do revolves around cooking, community, being with family. And some of my precious memories are of me being in the Shaptuan teepee with my family and just cooking and making sagaban and making all of our traditional meals. And sagaban is roasted goose. So we hunt Canadian goose where I'm from, and we cook them over a fire and we call them sagaban. And it's also really yummy. You'll have to try it if you're ever over there.
Yeah, it does sound really good.
It's so good. I think that would be my death row meal.
Just like listening to you talk, you seems like so like in depth with like your feelings and your emotions. And so I understand, I had heard too that you are like an advocate for mental health, right? So
I think it's important, you know, I think people don't realize that we all are dealing with intergenerational trauma. You know, every Indigenous person has been affected by it. And that comes with a lot of mental illnesses, mental health, you know, that really plays a toll on it. And it's really important for me to remind you that it's okay to struggle. You know, it's okay to have these problems. It's okay to have these issues. It's okay to have anxiety. You know, I have anxiety. I have ADHD. I have PTSD. I have all of the ABCDs. You know? Like I struggle a lot. You know, I was really into drug addiction. You know, I was really into alcohol abuse. You know, there were so many factors that I kind of went down. And realizing it was because of my mental health, and realizing that I was just escaping a lot of different things, you know, escaping my identity, escaping all of the abuse that I went through in my lifetime, you know, escaping all of the traumas that I never faced before, you know. And I think a lot of our youth, unfortunately, are running away from that, you know. And I think this generation now, though, is taking mental health more seriously, which is really beautiful. And I want youth to be empowered by that, you know. I don't want them to feel like they're damaged. Like, it's okay to have mental health problems. We're all human, you know. But that doesn't dictate, like, that doesn't make you any lesser than anybody, you know. In fact, it should make you a superhero. You know, you're a superhero if you're dealing with anxiety, depression, ADHD, and things that really just want to keep you in bed and keep you from preventing your goals. But the fact that you still wake up every day and wanting to beat that and combat that, I think it's powerful. And I think more of our youth need to be empowered by that and reminded, you know, that they are in control of their entire life. They're in control of their destiny. So I just want them to take control of that and really just flourish to the amazing individuals that they're meant to be.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people too who are live their lives undiagnosed too. Yep. They that's the reason why they even use substances. Like they're like self-medicating. What was your drug of choice?
I had a lot of drug of choices actually. So I started off with weed. I started smoking weed actually when I was a very young age, grade 9. Very young age. I highly don't recommend it because your brain is still developing at that age. And it's actually proven that you shouldn't be smoking weed until you're like 23, 24, you know, until your brain is actually fully developed. But unfortunately, like a lot of indigenous youth, we find ourselves in those situations. We find ourselves in those patterns. And then eventually, I started looking the way my relationship with weed though has always been different, because I've always seen the beneficial factors that come with that. It really helps with a lot of cancer patients, and hemp, that comes from the hemp plant is really sustainable and can grow into a lot of conditions. When I was in high school, I started teaching myself more about marijuana. I just didn't want to teach myself about like, oh, I just use it to get high. I want to learn more on like the medical benefits of it.
Hemp. When I think hemp, it's like hemp seeds.
Hemp. So hemp is like it's like a plant. It basically looks like weed, but it's another. It doesn't have like the bud that gets people like stoned. It's just like the stalk and the leaves. But that could actually be transported into anything. You can make anything out of hemp. You can make clothes out of hemp. You can make chairs, tables, everything. And it's also really sustainable for our environment. It could grow in any different climate conditions. But yeah, I just started educating more about that. And then, like I said, I struggle with anxiety and depression, and started learning about the different strains on how to, I guess I kind of started self-medicating myself through that with my ADHD and my PTSD. But then when it came down to like my traumas and my identity crisis, that's something that I wasn't really comfortable with in high school during that time. So I was battling that. And then eventually, my drug addiction started turning into cocaine, which then led to speed, which then led to methamphetamine, which led to Oxycontin, and then eventually, all my friends were basically all addicted to oxys, and I was like one of the few that didn't do it, but I was just there hanging out with my friends. And obviously I'm not like, I just felt bad that I wasn't the only one doing it. I don't know why I felt like that, but I was like, I just felt like I had to partake in it. And that's what I did. I just started getting high with my friends. It was just like a social thing. And then, yeah, I was like really wrapped up into methamphetamine, speed, Oxycontin. And then the summer of 2016 is when I decided to change my life, I guess, and quit all of that. So I did.
And then a year after that, that's when you tried your first attempt at fashion.
Yes.
I feel like once you sober up, that's when things start happening.
It's true, actually. I obviously been battling with, I always say sobriety is a journey, not a destination, and I've battled with alcohol for a long time. I didn't want to say like I had a really harmful relationship with it. Like I wasn't drinking like every single day, but when I would drink, I would get super blacked out and like not remember anything. And that always didn't sit right with me, because I'm always like, oh, like I wonder how I acted last night, and I actually made the decision to stop drinking alcohol now. And it's actually kind of crazy, when you stop doing things that are kind of harmful to you and your spirit and your energy and don't really serve your higher purpose, your path gets a lot clearer, and everything just starts to become aligned for you in your career. And ever since I quit drinking, I see it's happening for me right now. So yeah, it's true.
So it's just so when it comes to like your fashion, how much, I don't know if you can, how much does it like go for like average?
Like how much are my prices?
Yeah,
how much are my clothes?
Prices.
Well, like it ranges, like when I first started my collection, I was selling t-shirts for like $50, and I was selling jackets for like $80, hoodies for $80.
Oh, that price went up probably.
Oh yeah, I started learning more about different fabrics and different luxury materials, and I've always told myself that I wanted to become a luxury brand. If we look at all these luxury brands right now, we don't really see indigenous folks in these spaces, So I wanted my brand to stick out, and I wanted my brand to be seen as a luxury brand. So I started traveling to Italy and the UK, and really going to the fabric factories over there and learning their different ways at making luxury fashion. So I decided to incorporate that within my brand. And yeah, I think we try and always ensure that there's products for everybody on our site. You could find earrings that are like $40, $30 on our website. But then we also have earrings that are like $1,500, or products that are like $2,500, So it ranges, definitely.
Okay. Just pretend like you're talking to like somebody, like a indigenous person, young, who doesn't know where to start. Like, but they have a vision and they have designs. Then what do they do next?
Keep designing. You have a vision, you have a gift. Learn to tap into that and don't be afraid to share it. Sometimes I feel like we are scared to share our gifts because it brings this vulnerable side. Sometimes when it comes to our artwork, we're so protective over it, and when somebody doesn't agree with something, we take that to heart, because that's our part of our spirit and our energy that we're putting into these designs. And, you gotta learn how to not be afraid. You got to learn how to take everything with a grain of salt. You're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. That's okay. You can't cater to everybody. That's okay too. Just keep being yourself. Keep doing things that are authentic to you and that make you feel good. When that makes you feel good, people will see that and will feel that and will want to support that. So just keep doing what brings you fire, brings you that passion, makes you want to get up out of bed in the morning. Keep that close to you. And like I said, you could feel vulnerable sharing that gift, but there's beauty in being vulnerable. There's power in being vulnerable. Don't be afraid to share it.
Yeah. I can kind of tell that you've been kind of been to places, been around people, a lot of people. Has there ever been kind of a space that you walked into that you were just kind of intimidated? And when was the last time that ever happened?
Girl, every space that I go into,
yeah.
I have I think what people don't realize is sometimes being in this position and being oftentimes the first indigenous person in these spaces, you get a lot of imposter syndrome for sure. That's something I've dealt with for the longest time was, do I even deserve to be here? I'm just a kid from the res. I don't have shit to offer these people, why do they want me in this room? Or why am I in this room? I shouldn't be here. There's so many different people who should be in this space. I was getting so much in my head. And
well, where do you think that comes from?
It comes from intergenerational trauma for sure, from the trauma that was taught to our grandparents. People don't realize that intergenerational trauma affects generations for a long time, and that feeling of not being good enough, not feeling like you can't be yourself, that feeling of never being enough. That's what our grandparents felt in residential school. There was this whole thing of don't feel, don't talk, don't touch, don't do anything really. So that obviously translated into me not feeling good enough. And my parents also separated too at a very young age. My dad left, and then I had to deal with abandonment issues through that. So there's a lot of different factors, especially, with a lot of our youth. So many different factors that kind of play a role in that.
Do you think that all that trauma and everything you've been through translates into your creative kind of ideas?
Yeah, I always try and channel I don't want to say I always try and channel my trauma into creative energy, but there's I do want to showcase things that I've been through and just remind youth that they're not alone. We've all been through some shit, and I think there's really a sense of understanding and just a sense of I'm not alone when they know other youth have faced it or know that other youth have went through similar things that they've been through. So I always try to showcase that, but I really, 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 really just want to bring love, and community through the use of fashion. I feel like for the longest time, when people talk about Indigenous folk, it's always about our traumas, it's always about everything that we went through and everything that kind of fucked us up,
yeah.
And I really want us to focus on Indigenous joy, Indigenous love. And there's always so much talk about how we inherited intergenerational trauma and all of these things, but we've also inherited intergenerational strength, intergenerational resiliency, intergenerational love. Those things were also passed down to us from our grandparents, from our ancestors. And it's really important to tap into that and remind other people that we are not just trauma. We deserve to live Indigenous joy and share our joy with the world. And I want to be able to do that with fashion.
What does like mean to you, like fashion? Like, yeah.
What does fashion mean?
Yeah, like when you think about it.
To me, like when I think, fashion is a language. It's a universal language that everyone speaks, no matter what background you come from, no matter what place in the world you are. Fashion is always that way to kind of convey a message, convey a feeling, convey a persona. You know, makes people feel deadly. It makes people feel beautiful. You know, fashion could also make people feel sad. You know, there's so many different feelings people associate fashion with. And I think, like I said, fashion is just a universal language that we all use to communicate, you know, to connect with each other and ensure that there's a community built for us. And fashion is just there for all of us.
Okay. When I asked you about, you know, if you talk to somebody who's like has a vision and designs, but they don't know where to start, and you said to keep designing and keep going. What about like distribution, stuff like that? Or like what should they like go and like build their platform, or like what, you know, I mean, just kind of like the business plan.
Yeah. Well, luckily we live in this day and age now where we have everything, all the knowledge in the world we have the access to through the use of our smartphones, through the use of the Wi-Fi, you know, through the use of Google, you know, through the use of all these different search engines and everything. You know, I think it's really important to utilize that, you know. That's something I did, you know, just Googled like, how do I get distributors, or what are distributors, you know, like how could I do this? How could I do that? And you'll find like 10,000 of articles from 10,000 different artists who went down these different paths, you know, and you just research for yourself, you know, you know, you don't always have to rely on schooling for that. You know, I truly believe that life is one big school. You know, like I said, we have so much knowledge we have so much knowledge to access through our phones. Utilize that, you know, not a lot of people do.
So when's the next, like, how often do like collections drop?
Yeah, well, for my brand specifically, you know, I really like to combat the way the mainstream fashion industry is. So right now, the mainstream fashion industry, they usually have their fall, winter, and spring, summer, and then they have their resort collections in between. Sometimes they'll have pre-fall, pre-winter, pre-spring, pre-summer. You know, there's different subsections. But for me, I've actually been dropping a clothing collection once every almost year, every 2 years, if not. The last collection that I dropped was last February. The next collection I'm dropping, I honestly don't know. Whenever creator thinks it's right, I'll drop it. I just work on creator's time.
Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be bigger than the last one, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I'm really excited to drop this next collection. I've been designing it for a long while now. Been planning it for a while. Trying to make everything perfect for it. Yeah.
Do you think like is there like anything with this collection, because it's obviously gonna be huge, but then is there like some goals that maybe you want to accomplish with this one? That
I would really love my brand to be carried by a luxury retailer. So Essence or Holt Renfrew or Nordstrom, you know, all of these big high retail spaces, Bergdorf's, Goodman, you know, like I would love for my brand to be carried in one of those. You know, I would love to be like the first indigenous brand to be in those spaces, and yeah, really just paving a way and reminding them that our fashion is luxury too. Our fashion deserves to be at the same level as theirs. So that would be a goal of mine, to have one of these luxury fashion retailers carry my brand.
Okay. So social media.
Yes.
What's your relationship with social media?
Oh my God. I was literally just talking to Lydia about this earlier, but a few days ago, when Meta went down, Instagram and Facebook, girl, I was relieved.
What?
I remember feeling like, oh my God, I don't have to do this anymore. Yes! You know, like What people don't realize is social media is so draining sometimes. It could be such a negative space oftentimes, but at the same time, I see the benefits of it, because growing up in Moose Factory and not having anybody to connect with about fashion or things that we're into, social media was a way for me to connect with people from all around the world, and really reminded me that I'm not alone. I can be there's a community out there for me, but nowadays, with cancel culture and lateral violence, and I think people really take advantage of it almost oftentimes, and there's just such like a weird relationship I find between, like, I guess, influencers and like their audience, and it gets messy sometimes, like social media could be draining, but it could also be super beneficial to your career and to your life. I don't know. I love social media because it's brought so many blessings to my life. Like, I wouldn't have met all of these people if it weren't for social media. And I always give social media that respect, for really providing a platform for me to connect with other Indigenous youth, and not only Indigenous youth, but non-Indigenous people, and helping educate them on some facts. But it can be draining a lot of the time. I started, I actually have 2 phones now because I need to start setting up boundaries for myself on social media. There's a lot of hate comments, unfortunately, by non-Indigenous people, sometimes even from our own community members as well. And I think it's just really important to set those healthy boundaries for yourself, and really ensure that you're not letting, strangers on the internet dictate how your worth is. You will always be, those followers will always get to you, and there's always I was always in this position where I love connecting with people and, reading their comments and being able to reply to them. But then there's like that one negative comment, and I always think of that, like, for every negative comment, there's going to be 10 other comments that support and love you. So I always just try and focus on that, and I'm in charge of my own social media, bitch. Like, if I don't like what you have to say, then delete, block, just because I'm in this position where I'm considered like a content creator, influencer, and have this platform doesn't mean that I need to put up with your shit, so I'm not afraid of blocking people. I'm not afraid of deleting comments, I'm not afraid of doing anything about that, setting those boundaries. I think it's important, especially being on social media.
Oh, so you said you run your social media accounts?
I run all of them. Yeah, people think that I don't. And I get a lot of messages from that, but all my social media accounts are run by me for now.
Yeah. I can imagine that's probably a lot to deal with.
I mean, yeah, like eventually I want to hire a social media team to start posting for me and everything, and not have to read those comments. But at the same time, I love reading these comments. I love being able to connect with these youth and having these conversations with folks from around the world, and just really empowering them. And, sometimes, like, when I think about it too, whenever I was like scrolling through Instagram and I like commented on one of my celebrities, posts, and they liked my comment or even acknowledged it, I remember feeling like, oh my God, like super like, oh, they noticed me. Oh my God, I have something to live for. So I always want, like, I always want to be that for somebody else, and just give them that push, give them that encouragement.
Yeah. Would you like have like something like a message to say, like, maybe somebody who's like looking at your social media accounts and you feel like there's like stuff that they don't know, or like, like there's more to it than just pretty pictures online?
Yeah, no, definitely. I feel like if people look at my social media, they'll see different facets of me. Like on my Instagram, they'll see all of my fashion and like artistic type of work. On Facebook, they'll see all my res memes and all my rank shit that I love to say, On my TikTok, they'll see me just like doing makeup and just random shit, being with my family, being out in the land, being at events like this, I always try to be as authentic as I can on social media, but also ensuring that I have those boundaries set in place for myself. You know, like I don't need to tell them everything about myself,
Yeah.
you know? I don't need to tell them that I have 5 kids. Yeah, just kidding. I don't have 5 kids. But imagine I did and I just dropped a ball like that. Like, yeah, I actually have 5 kids. I just never showcase them on social media.
Pulling that Drake
Yeah.
until what? That beef started with Push T. Hi, what was his? I was hiding my kid from the world, not the world from my. Or I was hiding the world from my kid. Not I don't know, whatever.
I'm not even familiar with that drama, but interesting.
Yeah, that happened a couple years ago.
Okay, I'll have to follow up on it.
Yeah, I don't know. And so I want to say this too. So where's this like? What's the end game?
The end game. Oh wow. I always believe that we need to leave everything better than how we left it, or better than how we found it, I mean. And I came into this world where there was no respect for two-spirit people. You know, we were being bullied and being killed oftentimes, you know, being shunned out by our families, our communities. You know, I want to ensure that when I leave here, I want to ensure that two-spirit people are back with their communities, their roles are back. You know, I want to ensure that they're loved and they're protected and they're safe in their communities. You know, that's what I want. I want to ensure that all Indigenous youth feel safe in that, wherever they are. You know, I just want them to feel safe and loved and happy. And just reminding them that they are, you know, they are loved and safe and happy.
Say something to them.
I love you. Oh my God, no! Like every time I like think about like the young little Scots in the world, you know, or the young little Vernons, the young little Lydias, you know, there's younger versions of ourselves out there, you know, and I always think of that. Like, no matter what you're going through, it could be some dark ass shit. You're always gonna pull through, you know. Life goes on, days get brighter. That's the quote that I always live my life by, because it's true. Days get so much brighter, and it might seem dark right now, but there's always going to be that little glimpse of light. You gotta hold on to that light. You know, this world is a really dark place, and there are spaces where they don't want Indigenous folks like us to succeed or to be in. You know, you got to remind yourself that you were put on this earth for a reason. You have a gift. You have a voice, you know, share that, you know, be protective of your energy, take power in your identity, take your power back. Just keep being deadly. You know, you come from such a strong bloodline of resilient people. Tap into that resiliency, tap into that love, tap into that strength, because we all have it. We all carry it. It's all within us. It's just a matter of fact of tapping into it.
Okay, and with that, we'll end it there. And if you guys haven't noticed, I didn't ask him his name, and then just because he doesn't need an introduction. Okay. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Vernon's podcast.
Thank you, Vernon, for having me. Miigwech.
You can't forget about me too. It's Lydia Raviska. Love you guys. Bye.